Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 4th of March, 2021. Alright everyone, let's get into the news. Quickly before we get into that, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to my good friend Kite here. He's going to be doing a series of NFTs called The World of Ethereum. He'll be unveiling them, I guess, over the next few days. You can follow him on Twitter to keep up to date with that. And the Genesis Mint will be dedicated to Gitcoin, which means that parts of the proceeds will be donated to Gitcoin as part of the next matching round, which is really, really cool. So, yeah, fun fact about Kidder, he actually had a lot of, feedback in the Daily Gwei logo. I had my friend in real life design it, and then Kidder kind of refined it, gave a lot of feedback on it. So he was pretty instrumental there, and he's been a good friend for a long time. So definitely check this out. You don't have to buy it or anything like that, but I've seen the art itself, and it looks really, really cool. But if you're into NFTs, into crypto art or anything like that, definitely you want to be checking this out. And it'll be the bidding will start on the 5th, Friday the 5th, for these auctions. I think they're going to be on Rarible or something like that. But yeah, basically there's a few different things to kind of get your hands on. So definitely go check that one out. So I put out this tweet today called basically saying, turns out that the EVM was the moat all along. Now, I wrote about this in the Daily Gwei newsletter today, a more detailed piece, but I just wanted to quickly mention what I meant by this. So for those who don't know, Ethereum has a virtual machine called the EVM, or the Ethereum Virtual Machine. And this is basically what powers the smart contracts and all the code and logic behind it. And without the EVM, you couldn't have kind of like smart contracts, or without a virtual machine. Now, the reason why I say that the EVM is the moat, right? Because in crypto, people are always asking, like, what is the moat of an open source protocol, right? Is it the users? Is it the developers? Is it the liquidity? Is it the code? You know, all this sort of stuff. And I think some of that plays into it, but I wouldn't call them like massive moats. I think developers is a pretty good moat, but liquidity definitely isn't, right? Because you can make liquidity go from protocol to protocol just by incentivizing it at the end of the day. So I don't think liquidity is a very strong moat. Developers are, but I believe the strongest moat is the EVM, the Ethereum Virtual Machine. Now, this is the case because of the fact that if we look at something like BSC, Binance Smart Chain, which is, as I've mentioned before, a centralized clone of Ethereum, it means that developers, if they want to, can just take their code, take their applications, and just redeploy it on BSC with next to zero cost. Because the code and the smart contracts and everything like that are going to be exactly the same, because BSC is EVM compatible, because it's essentially Ethereum. And BSC isn't the only one. There's a bunch of other EVM compatible chains out there, and there's going to be EVM compatible layer 2s. I mean, there already is with Polygon, / Matic, and everyone's excited about Optimistic Ethereum, of course, which is coming out this month, which is going to be EVM compatible, and then Arbitrum as well. So those are all layer 2s. But in terms of other blockchains, there are these kind of things. And I think I put out another tweet a few weeks ago saying that it's funny how all these other, quote unquote Ethereum killers or other chains, spent many years raising billions of dollars to build all this fancy tech. And then, Binance just comes along, clones Ethereum, and gets more users and usage than they do in all the years that they've been around. And that's simply because of the EVM. Developers don't want to have to rewrite their entire app for a new ecosystem, right? That takes time, it takes money, you have to re-audit the code, you have to learn a new language, right? If it's not Solidity, you have to learn some other language. It just doesn't make any sense. So if you're a developer, you know exactly what I mean. But if you're not, just know that developers do not want to have to rewrite their entire app just to support your chain, especially when your chain has no users, right? So that's why the EVM, I believe, is the moat. And I did conclude my piece in the Daily Gwei by saying that I don't think that it's actually parasitic to Ethereum. I think it's additive, because I do believe these other chains are a stopgap between, Ethereum and Ethereum's layer 2, where the fees are higher on Ethereum, so people are using these other chains. But then once the Ethereum layer 2 ecosystem is kind of more, fleshed out, I believe pretty much most of the activity will just happen on there, and these other chains won't really have, be much, right? They'll just be like kind of like a check mark in history, sort of thing. Because these, as I said, these other layer 2s, at least most of them are EVM compatible, and that's exactly what you need, right? You don't want to have to force developers to recode everything and anything like that. And the reason why you're seeing actually projects port to, BSC and other places is because of this as well. It's like free for them to do, right? You just take your existing code, redeploy it, right? There's Developers have deployment scripts for their smart contracts, so it is so super simple. And out of that, you get free marketing, right? You get, potentially some more users who have been priced out of Ethereum, and you also get the favor of Binance, because deploying to BSC means that Binance views you more favorably, and maybe you'll get a listing for your token. So I understand why projects are doing it. And at the end of the day, if it doesn't take off and nothing happens and the chain dies down and dies off, and Ethereum's layer 2 ecosystem takes over, then it really didn't cost you anything to do it, and you got like a bit of benefit out of it at the same time. You might lose some community goodwill and all that sort of stuff, but I don't think I don't think that matters too much, right? There's people that like me who are ideological about this stuff, but we're not the majority, unfortunately, or fortunately, whatever way you look at it. So totally get why projects are doing this, and I don't blame them for doing it at the end of the day. But at the same time, I will always kind of like fight back against like centralization and centralized chains, and always promote the Ethereum alternatives, which are decentralized, right? Like the layer 2s. But it's kind of hard to promote that right now when a lot of it still isn't live or just kind of going live and being fleshed out. So looking forward to that. And on that note as well, Metamask added a really, really cool feature today where developers can now kind of recommend layer 2 networks or side chains to people as they come to their app. So say you go visit an app that's living on, say, a layer 2, right? Say you go visit the Optimistic, an app that's running on Optimism at some point in the future, and then, Metamask needs to kind of like maybe switch networks or something like that. You can basically embed this in the app so that it'll give a pop-up on MetaMask and tell the user to switch, right? This is especially really, really good for things like, side chains, I guess, like XDAI and stuff like that, where you have to actually change your network RPC manually. Now you can just basically go to an app that lives on XDAI, and the app will tell you, hey, you're on the wrong network. You need to add this network, and then you add it, and then it just gets automatically added in there, and then you switch over to that network, and you can go about your day. So yeah, pretty big feature release here. I think it's pretty cool that they're not only supporting layer 2, but other chains as well. If users are going to do this anyway, we may as well just make it easy for them, right? Excuse me. So yeah, really good release here from MetaMask, and I think I saw a tweet saying that this is better for layer 2s and Ethereum and the Ethereum ecosystem in general than the other kind of side chains and stuff like that. And I think, it's good for all of it. I don't think that it's a bad thing for any particular kind of chain, I guess. But it'd be interesting to see kind of how it plays out and the usage numbers around this. I do hope that MetaMask publishes some public usage numbers around, how many people change their network and are using like different networks as opposed to Ethereum, not just like other chains, but layer 2 ecosystems as well. Because I'll be very excited to see what the traction is like on that. So Georgios Konstantinopoulos from Paradigm put out a really great thread today, and I'll link it in the YouTube description. You can go check it out. But basically, as I've been saying over the past few days, the Berlin Ethereum network upgrade is scheduled to go live in April at block 12.2 million around there. And with it comes a bunch of different EIPs. So it's about 41 days away from now. And the EIPs that are coming are quite technical, as I've mentioned before. So Georgios does a great job of breaking it down here and linking to further kind of reading on these sorts of things. So if you want to learn more about that, definitely go check this out. One thing I will note is that EIP 1559 is not in this network upgrade. I want to make that very clear. If it gets accepted on, I think, tomorrow or Friday's all core dev call, if it gets accepted into the next network upgrade, which is called London, it will be scheduled for around July, or at least tentatively scheduled for July. So I'm expecting, and so is pretty much everyone else, that 1559 will be accepted, and then we'll pretty much have it in July, which is not that far away. We're in March, April, May, June, July. It's like 4 or 5 months away, and we'll have 1559 on the network, and we'll start burning those fees, which I think is going to be really, really cool and really good for the narrative as well. There's always some debates about 1559 and how much impact it will have on Ethereum's price. I think the narrative, of the fee burning is stronger than the actual fee burning itself. And on top of that, I think making the Ethereum network much more usable in general, because it it doesn't only just burn fees, it greatly improves the kind of Ethereum gas market, or fee market. I think that as well will add a lot of fundamental value to Ethereum too. So looking forward to that. But yeah, there's a bunch of different and interesting EIPs in Berlin that you should go check out as well. If you're a technical person, you'll enjoy it more so than the non-technical people, because maybe you won't understand it. I'm gonna say I don't understand most of it because a lot of it is pretty technical. But just reading the surface level stuff, it's very exciting. So Matthew Feinstein from Loopring put out a really cool tweet today saying that over 50,000 ETH is now in the Loopring layer 2, and that's been growing pretty steadily, as you can see from this chart, right? I mean, it started off, pretty much like under $10,000 in $10,000 under 10,000 in December, it looks like here. Now it's up to over 50,000 ETH and just growing at a really steady pace here, which is really cool. And he goes on to say, forget about USD TVL. He cares about the ETH TVL. We measure the Ethereum economy in ETH. And I agree with him. I think there's 8.5 million ETH locked in DeFi right now, last time I checked. And, that's just such a great measure of how the health of the Ethereum economy. I think, TVL and USD is fun, but also it counts like a lot of the non-ETH TVL, which is fine, but it can be inflated in certain areas, and it cannot make like total sense to kind of compare that. But definitely, seeing it grow and seeing the ETH locked in, not just Loopring but in DeFi in general, grow is great, because it means more people are using ETH as a collateral asset or as an economic asset in their DeFi activities, which is what we want, right? As I've explained on the refuel before, that's one of the 3 core value pillars of ETH's value accrual, and it's a critical one. It's used as trustless collateral within DeFi as an economic asset to increase the economic bandwidth of the Ethereum network. So really, really cool stat from Matthew here. So Arbitrum, another team building optimistic rollups, basically announced today on Twitter that their kind of technology is no longer patent pending, which means that they are not going to patent any of their technology, I think, or any of their kind of layer 2 tech here. And they go on to say that Arbitrum is a community project, and abandoning the patent was a critical step for them in preparation for their upcoming mainnet launch. I think their mainnet launch is going to come probably this month or next month, right, if I had to guess, just because of the fact that Optimism is launching and Arbitrum are basically, I guess you could call them a competitor, or at least they're building kind of like similar tech. So they definitely want to get to mainnet, just as quick there. But it's really cool that, this not going to be patented now, right? All the code will kind of be open source. People will be able to use it, fork it, all that good stuff. So yeah, good job to Arbitrum here. And for those who don't know, Arbitrum is just the name of the optimistic rollup technology. It's actually being built by a team called Off-Chain Labs. And, Optimism gets a lot of attention, right? But I think Arbitrum and Off-Chain Labs are just as important to the future of Ethereum kind of scaling here with optimistic rollups. And I think that they've got just as much smart people as Optimism does. So always good to have competition, healthy competition, and different options. We don't want a monopoly on anything in the space. And, it's really great that maybe others can kind of fork this code and if they want to, and maybe make their own ecosystem. I think it's really cool. So Gods Unchained. Now, for those who don't know, Gods Unchained has been a trading card game that's been around for quite a while now. All the way back in maybe 2018, maybe 2019. I can't remember exactly how long it's been around for. But it's been around for a while, and this was built by a company called Immutable, who are also building a tool called Immutable X, which is their layer 2 ZK rollup NFT exchange that is going live very, very soon as well. But what they announced today, or what they published today, I should say, in this blog post is basically a rollout plan for Gods Unchained on Immutable X. Now, the reason why I think Gods Unchained hasn't taken off people would have hoped it would is because when you buy the trading cards, a lot of them aren't worth very much. So when you try to trade them, the gas fees end up being more than, what the card is worth. So, the trading ecosystem is pretty poor because of that. Now, with Immutable X, this kind of solves all those issues because we're going to layer 2. There's going to be basically free transactions, super scalable, all that good stuff. And I think Gods Unchained is going to be a centerpiece of that ecosystem there. So this post basically runs through the rollout stages, how it's all going to work, what the features are, how it improves upon the experience, all that good stuff. So you can go check out this blog post. It'll be linked in the YouTube description. Obviously, I won't read out the whole thing. But yeah, this is another solution that I'm actually really excited about because they're focusing on NFTs. A lot of the other platforms are generalized, so they're just gonna put their tech out there but not have any kind of specific focus. I think Optimism is definitely going to be focusing on DeFi first, and I think Arbitrum will be the same thing simply because of the fact that DeFi is that killer use case, but DeFi, I think NFTs are getting, they're not as big as DeFi yet in terms of like value, kind of like flowing through it, but they're going to get there. So I'm really looking forward to Immutable X kind of being released and showing the power of what I guess like Ethereum scaling can do, not just for DeFi but also for NFTs. So speaking of optimism, Ben from Rari Capital put out a really cool tweet today, and I'll link it in the YouTube description so you can go to all these links. But basically, he says, if you only just kind of understand optimism, it's time to get serious. I present to you Optimism Bootcamp. So he gives 4 links here, which are pretty much like required reading and watching. And he put some times here. I think that's just part of the joke that it's like a boot camp. You don't have to wake up at 6 a.m. to read Vitalik's blog post here. But basically, I mean, this is Vitalik's kind of like incomplete guide to rollups. There's a video here about it, about optimism from Calvin Fitcher, who works at Optimism. Of course, Paradigm's research that they published a couple of weeks ago, I think, or a few weeks ago now, back in January. Wow. Okay. Or end of January, to be fair. That I kind of talked about on the refuel that you should definitely go read. And then the Optimism docs themselves. So yeah, they've got like a really great kind of docs section here. So if you want to dive deeper into optimistic rollups and how optimism works specifically, definitely go check out these resources that Ben provided here. So a major release for Go Ethereum today on the ETH1 network. This is version 1.10 called the Pangea Expanse. They've codenamed it. With this release comes snapshots through SnapSync to pruning and database optimizations. And they've said it's got everything to make Ethereum better. So if you're running an ETH1 client, which you should be if you can, you should definitely upgrade your client to this version because there's like a lot of upgrades. I mean, this blog post is packed. Look at that. Look how much upgrades have come to it. A lot of it's technical upgrades, but by running this, you're helping kind of like the network, by decentralizing it by running a node. And there's a new sync called SnapSync, which will actually get you kind of synced up faster with the Ethereum network, which I think is really, really cool as well. So yeah, if you're running an ETH1 node, definitely go download this, check it out. I mean, if you don't want to, you don't have to, because like there's other versions that you can be running, a little bit older versions. But I think that you should definitely upgrade this. And they made a note here as well saying that this doesn't come with the Berlin hard fork, which means you'll have to upgrade again when the Berlin hard fork client is released here. Apparently there was some set 11th hour concerns about specific EIP. So maybe it'll come out next week or something. So maybe you want to skip over this version and just wait for the Berlin hard fork compatible version, because you'll need to upgrade, upgrade to that version if you want to be on the Berlin hard fork there. So an update from Yam today, they released a new, I guess, kind of like feature called DAO House, which is a treasury management solution for DAOs. Now, they're actually using SET protocol under the hood here, which I think is really cool because as you guys know, I'm an advisor to SET. I worked there for quite a while. And I mean, they've basically already kind of like got products on SET's infrastructure. They've got like the Yam DAO House where they're managing Yam's treasury through a SET essentially, and you can actually go on token sets and see this. And they're basically releasing this as a kind of open solution for other DAOs to tap into it, basically. And you can see here, this is how it kind of looks. The DAO House sits on the top, and then the Yam DAO is underneath here, and the Yam DAO House is underneath that, and then, there's other DAOs that can be on top with the DAO Houses under there as well. So, yeah, really, really cool. I mean, I wrote about kind of like, I guess, governance yesterday in the Daily Gwei newsletter, but I didn't talk about treasury management much in there, or at all from memory. But I think treasury management for DAOs is critically important. You need ways for DAOs to kind of, I guess, be flexible with their treasury, because they have large treasuries. I mean, I've spoken about Uniswap's treasury before. That's massive, right? It's billions of dollars worth, I think. And there's other protocols with big treasuries as well. Now, a lot of these treasuries are denominated in their own token. So maybe they want to divest out of that token and go buy some ETH with it, or go buy some stable coins and do yield farming and all that sort of stuff. So this is what this kind of solution aims to help with. And because it's built on SET protocol's infrastructure, it can do a lot of this stuff natively through SET protocol. And through it, like, I can kind of vouch for SET. Like, it's a very kind of secure protocol. It's been around for a while. The team knows exactly what they're building for here. And you can actually see here, like, all these features are built in as well, into the Token Sets website, where you can do trades, using your kind of like, your DAO House, which is essentially like part part of all of your treasury, which I think is really, really cool. But yeah, I mean, you know what's funny about Yam is that I think I've been talking about them for a while now on the Refuel, and I know a lot of people still think Yam is a joke, right? Because it started as like it started off pretty random, right? It launched during DeFi summer. There was like that whole craze about it. Then there was a massive bug in it, which kind of bugged out the rebasing, feature, and then they disabled the rebasing feature. And now they're just doing like all these cool products, like this DAO House. They've got like Umbrella Protocol, which is like an insurance protocol. I think they're working on a few other things as well. So really cool to see them like not capitulate and just become another kind of footnote in, you know, Ethereum DeFi summer history. They're actually building things. They're actually doing really cool stuff. And disclosure, I mean, as you guys know, I own Yam tokens, and I mean, I own them because I'm bullish on the project. I think it's going to go far. Not investment advice, right? I don't know if it's going to go up or down, but you know, I'm taking the bet that it'll go up over time because of what all the stuff that they're kind of building here. And it's funny, I didn't buy Yam until they removed the rebasing either, because I didn't want to hold a rebasing token, because if you haven't looked at them lately, pretty much all the rebasing / algorithmic stablecoins, they're just wrecked, right? They're absolutely wrecked, because they were all Ponzi games essentially. So yeah, I didn't want to hold it then, but now that they removed it, it's fine, and it's just like a normal token and everything like that with governance rights and all that shebang. So yeah, really, really cool to see this out of Yam Finance today. There's a pretty lengthy blog post, so definitely go read it if you want to learn more about it. So speaking of governance, mStable, another project that I'm advising and an investor in as well, just a disclosure there, they put out a pretty lengthy governance update here. So I've been kind of like working with them, on this, you know, kind of in the background, not too involved, but like, you know, I've been seeing it evolve over the last few months, and it's been really cool to watch. They've basically created a whole system where they've got a bunch of different kind of DAOs, right? There's actually a picture here of how it works down here, I think. Yeah, so they've got like an association, which is is a Swiss not-for-profit kind of entity, which is basically kind of like separated from the protocol itself. So you can see here in the image, there's like an ethical wall between the association and mStable DAO and the protocol DAO. And what the mStable DAO is, it's an entity that manages mStable's public token treasury. So as I was just saying, there's treasury management, which they've kind of separated into a separate DAO here. And then there's a protocol DAO, which executes and manages upgrades to the mStable kind of protocol. And they're multi-sigs right now. And there's also, you know, MTA token holders can vote on what happens in the protocol, but the execution is actually done by the multi-sig. And the fun thing is, or like at least I thought it was pretty cool, is that the signers on the mStable DAO and the protocol DAO are actually different, and there are certain parties that are part of the mStable kind of ecosystem that can't be a signer for one, you know, DAO or both the DAOs because of conflict of interest and stuff like that. So you can actually see all the details about this in this blog post. I won't kind of like go through it here, but I think mStable is doing some pretty good pioneering work here on governance. I mean, I mentioned in the Daily Gwei newsletter yesterday that we can't solve governance, right? It's not something to be solved. As humans, we've kind of like built up governance systems over thousands of years. And the best system we came up with is democracy. And democracy is great, right? But it has deep flaws. I would call democracy like the least worst system, right? There's lots of other systems and ways to govern, like, you know, a nation, but democracy is the best we've come up with. It's it's pretty much the fairest, most inclusive, and it represents stakeholder interests relatively well. But also it has its deep flaws, right? Where, you know, it's kind of like with politics in general, not many people kind of pay attention to it. So people just end up kind of like either not voting or voting for someone that is against their best interest because they're just not keeping up with it, right? I mean, there's so many different issues. But the thing is that there are issues because we're all human at the end of the day, right? We all have our own views, we all have our own kind of ways of doing things, and we all believe in different things, and it's very hard for us to agree on everything. So there's never going to be a governance system that is just going to like please everyone. That's impossible. So what we do in governance, and not just in kind of crypto, but in general, is that we iterate towards the best solution. And democracy took a long time to come up with, right? So I think the same thing's going to play out with kind of protocol governance within DeFi, where we're going to see lots of experiments play out. We're going to see lots of iterations of different things play out, and we're going to see what works, right? And what doesn't work, what represents people well, what people like being a part of. you know, the power of these things is that the community doesn't have to stick around. It's not like, you know, where you're a citizen of a nation and you kind of like stick around for, because you're, you know, in meat space, and there's lots of different reasons, like your family's there, right? You have citizenship, which, you know, to get citizenship of another country, depending on where you are, is quite hard. Whereas on chain, you know, even if you're known or you're anonymous, you can just move. Like, if you don't want to be part of like mStable anymore, or the mStable governance system, you can just sell your MTA tokens and go away, right? That's the kind of exit cost there. Very, very small. But if you want to, on the flip side, if you want to be part of a protocol's governance, all you really have to do is, I mean, you don't have to, but, you know, it's good to, you know, you buy the token, right? And then you go on the forum and you start participating. You go on Discord, you start talking to people. Start giving ideas. You know, if there's a governance proposal that gets posted, you say to them, hey, you know, I think this is a good idea, or hey, I think this is a bad idea. And you can do this completely anonymously, or you can do it under your own name. You can jump on community calls, right? You can kind of speak to the community on there and speak to the developers and all that sort of stuff. Whereas, as I said, in real life, it's a lot harder to do this sort of stuff, to enter and exit. Like, I can't just say, oh, I'm going to go become a citizen of, you know, some European country, right? Because, you know, I mean, something that's not in the EU, because I could get EU citizenship if I wanted, because I've got a background, I've got an Italian background. But, you know, say, you know, I wanted to become a citizen of like Switzerland, which isn't in the kind of the EU there. Then, you know, I couldn't, right? It'd be very hard for me to do it. I have to go there, get residency, right? Go through the whole process, and it usually takes a long time. I know in Australia, you have to basically live here for 5 years, and then you can apply to become a citizen. And, you know, that's a long time, right? You have to make a commitment, right? You have to be sure that Australia is where you want to kind of settle down in, and that you want to become an Australian citizen, and that you're not like a citizen like of another country that won't let you become a citizen of Australia. Like, there's all these kind of rules. Whereas with crypto governance, there's none of that. You can go in and out whenever you want, which I think is really cool. So yeah, kudos to mStable here for innovating. I mean, I don't want to shield too much because, as I say, I'm an advisor and investor to them, but I think that they're doing really cool pioneering work here. And so are a bunch of other projects. I mean, there's another one that I spoke about yesterday in the Daily Gwei newsletter, Inverse Finance, which actually ended up seizing the tokens of people who weren't voting in governance proposals. And the fun thing is that this token isn't tradable yet. It'll be tradable soon. So the only way you could actually get the token is you had to get it from an airdrop. And I got some in the airdrop, just disclosure here. And then, you know, if you didn't vote on any of the governance proposals, there was a governance proposal to seize people's assets, and people said, seize people's in tokens, and people said, okay, you know, do that. And then what ended up happening is that there was plenty of warning beforehand, but because people weren't paying attention, their tokens got seized. And then as soon as their tokens got seized, all these people came out of nowhere and came like to the Discord and started complaining, right? Being like, what the hell, you took my tokens away from me, what is this, right? So it's just kind of hilarious that these people were essentially freeloaders, right? They were not paying attention to any of the Inverse Finance channels, because it was posted all over Twitter, all over Discord, right? I think the governance kind of forum as well. But what they were paying attention to was their kind of like wallet, right? And kind of like tokens in their wallet. So they were purely speculators. They were just waiting for the token to be tradable, right? To be able to kind of either sell it or trade it or do whatever. And that's not what Inverse Finance kind of wanted to optimize for, which I think is pretty cool, right? I don't think that could work at a large scale. Like, Inverse is a pretty small project. I don't think something like Maker Governance could get away with doing that, right? Could you imagine Maker Governance basically being like, okay, anyone who doesn't vote in this proposal is going to have their MKR seized? I think at most there's like, I think the biggest vote, maybe 10-15% of MKR tokens or something like that. So you can imagine all those other tokens being seized. That would be catastrophic. I think a lot of people would be upset about that. And on top of that, there are actually a lot of I think big players, especially VCs and funds that own MKR, that can't actually use them in governance because they're not allowed to, because they're regulated against doing that. So it doesn't always work, but I think it really works for these smaller, more nimble and innovative kind of like projects that can innovate faster, because they don't have that massive kind of like, you know, network effect or anything yet. They don't have like that massive kind of holder base. So that was interesting. But yeah, definitely go give this post a read from mStable. I think it's well worth it. Alright, that's it for today, everyone. Thank you again for listening and watching. Be sure to give that video a thumbs up, subscribe to the YouTube channel, join the Discord channel, subscribe to the newsletter, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.